Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great Sunday. It's obvious that I'm not there. I'm actually standing in Masada, a military fortress in Israel, and right behind me is the Dead Sea. It's an incredible thing that we're doing right now, and I can't wait to share it with you when we get back in town. Today, you're going to be watching a video from a series that we did, Love, Sex, and Dating, 2 years ago, and it deals with some incredibly important and yet, as you're going to see, uncomfortable topics. And so, as you walk through that, I just want to remind you that this upcoming Sunday, Lisa and I will be back and we'll be answering your questions. So, if you've got questions, maybe you've been waiting, maybe you've been trying to kind of think through whether you want to ask it or not, you can always go to riverlakechurch.com and find the cue card that says Blurred Line Q&A questions, and we're going to answer all of those next week. I hope you have a great week. I will see you then. God bless. See you next Sunday. Well, today I am preaching a sermon. I normally don't tell you the title, but I want today. I'm preaching a sermon called Porn and the Pineapple. And really, don't laugh at that. No, anyway, you can laugh. No, I want to talk about porn and the pineapple, and it's not some weird kinky thing, okay? So let's just be really clear, all right? Don't go there. But I want to talk about that, but to do this with integrity, to do this the way that I really, because again, we talk about relevant, simple, real, and I don't think I did this well in the first service. I've got to say some stuff that really makes me uncomfortable. And so you got to know, like, it's a boundary thing if it's making me uncomfortable, okay? So to do that, every time that I feel like I'm going to get a little uncomfortable or I might make you uncomfortable, she can go ahead and take these sunglasses and put them right on down. That way you can't be like, I think Nick's looking right at me. You can't see my eyes, okay? I am looking right at you, but you have no clue who you are. So anyway, I'm going to do that, and at the end of the day, hopefully we can have a conversation that I believe is incredibly relevant. Because when it comes to pineapples, maybe you didn't know this, maybe you did. At one point in time, people didn't know what pineapples were. In the early or the late 15th century, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 14. Yeah, y'all are smarter than me. I missed that first service. Anyway, so he did this, and in some of the expeditions, they brought back to that empire, into Europe, a pineapple. It's the first time that they had ever seen a pineapple, and I guess they're kind of commonplace to us, but if you think about it for a second, it is a really, really odd, unique, weird-shaped fruit. It has the exterior hard and prickly and pointy like a pine cone, but the interior that's sweet and wonderful and delicious like an apple. And so they said, listen, we're going to call it a pineapple. Pineapples became incredibly famous in the empire during this time period. They were the end-all, be-all. If you've ever wondered, if you've ever been over to Europe or if you ever looked at some structural things and you see a pineapple in the middle of the architecture, they actually put them in everything. Pineapples became a sign of status and wealth. They put them in their architecture, they put them in their paintings, they put them everywhere. Pineapples became incredibly rare, incredibly unique, and incredibly special. Matter of fact, these were such a big deal, you really could never afford to eat a pineapple. Modern day equivalent to what a pineapple would be back then is about $8,000. That's an expensive lunch. Makes Ruth Chris look cheap, doesn't it, okay? So you'd never eat a pineapple. No, what you would do is you could actually, in that time period, you could rent a pineapple and you would get a dish and you'd put it right in the middle and it would be this centerpiece kind of a deal. And theirs probably didn't lean like mine does, but mine's old. So anyway, but they'd put things around it and you would walk up and you could rent it and you would look at it and people might touch it, you know. You'd be like, don't touch the pineapple, and all the kids would be like, don't touch what? You know, that's what they would do. And the pineapple was the end-all, be-all. It was a sign of status. It was a sign of wealth. It was a sign of uniqueness and something incredibly special. But some brilliant person thought, you know what, $8,000 a pineapple, I can grow a lot of pineapples for $8,000 a pop. So they started to develop pineapple farms. And they started to produce them. And over a period of decades, not months, not weeks, not years, decades, the influx of pineapples started to become more and more and more and more and more. The value of pineapples became less and less and less and less. And as supply rose, demand decreased. And modern day, I went to Walmart last week and I bought a can of pineapple chunks for 89 cents. See, the problem isn't the pineapple. The problem isn't the demand of the pineapple. The problem is when supply goes up and you consistently give something away over and over and over and over again, and it becomes free and it becomes everywhere and it becomes available to anybody at any point in time and on demand, all of a sudden the value of the thing that was once highly valued becomes almost irrelevant. And we're in the middle of this series called Love, Sex, and Dating, and we've been talking about this, and where I want to go today is I want to talk about porn, and I want to talk about, this kind of culture that we live in right now, because what's happened is this. We have turned what was once in our culture sacred, unique, special. Our sexuality was something at some point in time to be protected, to be embraced, to own and to keep for only one person. It has gone from this to chunks. Things that people just consume in us and for us and on us, on demand, whenever we want. And as that has gone up, as we have swiped right, as we talked about last week, as we have embraced a culture of sexuality that is free love and two consenting adults, and it doesn't matter, and what's the big deal? All of a sudden, what used to be special and unique and have incredible value has become average and mundane. It's become normal. And the problem is this, and this is really where I want to go, and this is where I'm going to push some of you today. It's really where I want to challenge some of you, because this applies to everybody. You might be sitting there thinking, this has nothing to do with me. I promise you it does, wherever you're at. Because what's happened is, and I don't know when it happened, I don't know what moment it happened, but over a period of time, we have went from, as a culture, purity to impurity, and I don't know where we're at. I don't know if we're at the 89-cent chunks of pineapple. I know we're not at the $8,000 pineapple level, but you can just look at our culture and come to the conclusion, listen, we have drifted. And what was once sacred and what was once exciting and what was once unique, that you was between one person and another one person, what's everywhere? What at one point in time you had to look for in a brown magazine wrapped in a brown paper bag behind the counter, well, we've shifted so much, it's become so common that now it's on the cover of Vogue, sitting out in the open, the grocery line for anybody, you and your kids to see. What was once on I Love Lucy, I remember growing up watching I Love Lucy. How many godly people loved I Love Lucy? Yeah, I love Lucy. Yeah. I remember watching I Love Lucy, and you remember the bedroom scene? You know where I'm going with this? Like they couldn't even have one bed. Why? Because it would show any type of sexuality that you couldn't show that on TV. And so in their own bedroom, I mean, they had a kid somehow, so I don't know how that worked in the show. But anyway, they had a kid somehow, but they had two separate beds. We went from I Love Lucy to Game of Thrones. It's shifted. It's shifted just a smidge, just a little. What at one point in time you had to go look for and purchase, with the advent of the phone, has become on demand and instant. And there is a problem. And all I want to do today is this. I don't want to draw any lines. I'm not going to sit back and go, hey, here's the line. Don't do this. Don't go there. Listen, it's not about drawing lines. It's about connecting dots, because my fear is we have drifted. And for many of us, we're not even aware of it. Because what I have discovered, and what I want you to walk out of here today with this, is just one statement. That purity paves the way for intimacy. That nothing else does. That at the end of the day, every single person on some level, you want to have an intimate relationship with somebody else. And we talked last week that it's not sex, because sex is a symptom. How great your sex life is a symptom in so many different ways. And that the goal is intimacy with somebody else. And that includes sex, but it includes other things too. It includes conversations and relationships and communication. That you were designed, you were made to be intimate. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, conversationally with one other person, to have that unique relationship. But how we get there is by pursuing the pineapple, not the chunks. And so today I want to unpack maybe kind of a few areas that we've maybe messed up purity, that maybe you've never thought about, that maybe I'm going to challenge you a little bit with, that might be unintentionally messing up the purity in your life that's paving the way to intimacy. See, at the end of the day, here's the deal. We're going to put it up on the screen. What we are exposed to and what we expose others to has everything to do with our purity, where we're at on this scale. Number one, if you want to number them or whatever, but really, when you think about it, it's broken down to kind of three categories, but the first one is this: it's what we wear. And there's so many disconnects, and I don't want to spend enough time. We don't have enough time. I wish I did. But what we wear matters. What we wear matters. In fact, to God, it matters to God what you wear. Maybe you've never thought about this, but there's this book, Leviticus. It's in the Old Testament. Many people have never read that book. How many people just honestly, you've read through the whole book of Leviticus? 4. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Because you get into it, let's be honest, you get into it and you're like, there's like a slaughterhouse, okay? They're killing that sheep and that goat and that bull and that, like, I don't know what to do all this, it's kind of boring, irrelevant, you move on. In the middle of that, though, I believe Leviticus is an incredibly compelling book because God is speaking to a people who are coming out of a land who are worshiping and this one true God, and they're going into a new land and they worship unique gods. They worship different gods. On Easter, we're gonna unpack that. I can't wait for Easter. But they're worshiping these gods of Molech and Asherah and Baal and all these different gods and all these different theories and theologies about what produces crops and where the rain comes from and the sun god and the moon god and all these different things. And we miss that when we read Leviticus because we just read it like right now. But I want to read you a verse. It's Leviticus 19:19. God says this really weird, obscure, odd thing out of context. He says this: do not wear clothing woven of two kinds of material. So if you're here today and you've got a poly blend, you're a sinner. Sorry, you need to leave right now. Like, no, I'm just kidding. No, in this verse, if you look it up, he says 3 statements in a row that are really odd. He says, listen, make sure that you don't make 2 different types of animals together. Make sure that you don't blend 2 different types of seeds together. And make sure that you don't wear clothing woven of 2 types of material. You read that and you're like, what in the what? That's why I don't read the Bible right there, okay? I don't know what to do with that, okay? I'd have to throw out all of my wardrobe. This verse is incredibly important, though. I'll tell you why. Because the culture back then and there, they would do this thing where they had this theory that where the rains came from. And the rains were a product of fertility of the goddess. And the goddess's fertility was the product of sexual intercourse with the other gods. And they really believed, they had a theory that they believed that they could excite the gods to have sex in heaven and it would produce a crop, and a rain that would produce a crop. And so all of their abundance, all of their money, all of their wealth was dependent upon these 2 gods having sex, intertwining. And so they really believed that if they could intertwine fabrics, if they could intertwine seeds, if they could intertwine animals that normally don't intertwine, that somehow the gods would be aroused and they would come together and have sex and the rains would come. So, God writes this. He says, listen, never let what you wear detract from who you worship. That's incredibly important, isn't it? I mean, not the polyblend aspect of that. Okay, this is a polyblend. Okay, we're good. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. But the premise that God's saying, listen, what you wear can detract from who you worship. That really, it's not about like, oh, I said my prayers this morning and I'm good to go. No. What you wear. And yet in our culture, we completely mess this up and we have so many disconnects. This is the part where I'm going to put my shades down really quickly here. Here we go. Because I'm going to say something that, man, it might offend some people, might push some people. I could spend an hour on the different type of clothing we wear. Guys and women who wear way too tight clothing. It's like, I don't know, who you're trying to impress, what you're trying to do, And then those same people get mad when they're objectified, like all men want is that. And I'm like, you might be catching what you're baiting. So anyway, just side note. But let me push you a little bit where I think probably, I don't want to say everybody, but I would say the majority of us struggle with when it comes to clothing. Let me point out maybe some disconnects in this area where we've left purity and we're over here and maybe we haven't even realized it and has to do with swimsuits. See, let me say something. If you feel comfortable in a bikini at a pool, wet, but not in your underwear at work, there's a disconnect there. Because you're exposing the same amount of skin. And I don't know the line. And I don't know what happened. I don't know what guy, because I got to believe it was a guy, convinced our culture and convinced women, hey, listen, guys will think of you sexually appealing, and they will look at you and they will fantasize about you if you're at work and only in your underwear. But if you're at a pool wet, they don't think about that at all. You can laugh at that. It's stupid. Every teenage boy is like, that's true. No, yeah, absolutely. No, you wear that. That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, come on. Let's be real. I don't know the line. I'm not trying to say don't wear a bikini. I don't know the line. I just know that when the bikini was first invented, you can look this up. It's common knowledge. You go to Wikipedia. The man who produced it couldn't even find a model to wear it. He had to find a stripper who was perfectly comfortable being naked to model it in Europe. And something shifted. And it wasn't the pineapple. And it wasn't purity. And again, I don't know where the line is. I just know there's this weird disconnect. And dads, if your daughter came down the stairs just bouncing around and she had her underwear on and you're like, where are you going? I'm just going to my boyfriend's house. Oh, heck no. Like, I got 3 daughters. We will have a conversation at that moment. And yet I feel like in many families, if the daughter was wearing the same outfit, said, I'm going to my boyfriend's pool, okay. Like, we're messed up. And I don't have a lot of solutions today. I don't have a lot of answers today. I just know that there's some real disconnects in what we wear out. And that's probably one of the biggest ones. We should feel incredibly exposed when we are exposed. And yet because of culture, not because of God, but because of culture, there's some areas where all of a sudden we have been convinced of a lie that it's okay. I just don't think it is, because it messes with us. When it comes to our music, man, what we listen to, what we talk about, what we say, it's crazy. I mean, people sit back and they worship on Sunday and they sing songs, and man, our band does a great job, and we got songs and we sing. I love this new song we're singing right now. You know, it's great. The love of God, it's awesome, moves us. And then on Monday, it's 107.1 or 107.5 or whatever, latest greatest hits. And it's you listen to the lyrics, it's all about a hookup culture and degrading women and calling women certain adjectives and names. And I'm not going to say anything right now, but there's certain things that they say. And we sing them, and it's a disconnect. And again, I'm not trying to draw lines, because I don't think that everybody should listen to Christian music. I don't think Christian music's a real thing. Like I heard somebody say one time, Jesus didn't die for music, so there's no Christian music. There's Christian people who listen to music. And I don't know where the line is. I just know that if you would look back 50 years ago to what the lyrics were in the songs then and what the lyrics are right now, the lyrics of music right now, in almost every genre, specifically towards women, treat them as objects to be consumed and then thrown away. And if you're here today and you're a Christian, you're left with one of 2 options. You're left with the option that, you know what, Nick, because here's the pushback I get, Nick, I like the beat. Just listen to the beat. Okay, sure, whatever. You're left with either God's wrong, and the songs that we sing here don't affect you, don't move you, don't challenge you, don't encourage you, don't affect you in any way at all. And so therefore the songs you sing on Monday through Saturday don't affect you or move you in any way at all. Or the music that we listen to and we sing, what we put in our ears, what we expose ourselves to, profoundly affects us. And so if you've ever been moved by a song here, it's really hard to deny. And you can lie to yourself, and you can say you can handle it, and you can say it doesn't matter, and you can say it, and listen, I don't even have a line. I'm not trying to sit back and say, don't listen to so-and-so. I mean, there's certain people I can say, yeah, absolutely, never listen to that person. But, you know, Like, I don't have a line for you. I'm just trying to point out there's a disconnect here, and we have so lost and ran away from purity that we're not even sensitive to it anymore, that it doesn't even bug us anymore. And it's messing with our intimacy with other people. It's messing ultimately with our intimacy, our relationships. Because when we are aroused, when we are sexually aroused, it does something to our minds. And we live in a culture that's consumed and obsessed with pornography. And what was once so clear to describe and what was once so clear to define it's gotten really blurred, really messed up. See, some of you push back and go, Nick, the music's not really pornography, but actually, in many ways it is. The original term for pornography is broken up into two different words, porneia and ography. And the first one is a Greek word. It's where we get the word porn from. It's erotic type of material, and ography is just written. So the very first pornography wasn't images. It was what was written. It was stories. It was lyrics. Things that were read, things that were repeated. And again, I get it. I get the pushback. I get the challenge. I get that you don't understand. I know. I'm not trying to draw a line. I'm trying to connect some dots for you, because I think there's, in this room right here, here's what I would say, statistics would say, a good percentage of people are addicted to porn right here in this room right now. I'm going to put my glasses down now, because that made me feel uncomfortable. I don't know about you, but anyway. Which means a good number of people need to be paying attention to what I'm saying. Because you don't see it. And you're not making the connections, the disconnect with what you listen to and what you produce in your life. The last one is just straight up porn. That's what we look at. It's the very clear ones as far as kind of just justifying it and seeing it and noticing it, but it's become so pervasive in our culture. Christian men and women walk up to me and be like, hey, Nick, have you seen so-and-so? You need to check out this TV show. You need to check out, this show. You need to watch this movie. And it's just littered with just nudity and sex. It's crazy. You can go online and listen to the most popular TV shows in our culture, and we're supposed to be a Christian nation and, whole deal, but Game of Thrones. This past weekend, and I didn't check. I need to check it before third service. Actually, if somebody can check for me, that'd be great. But my assumption is this weekend, 50 Shades Freed will be the #1 movie. It's porn. It's mommy porn, but it's porn. Okay? Magic Mike. All these different things that we watch. Westworld. TV shows, cable shows. It's porn. It's us watching two people have a sexually intimate relationship. And there's disconnects with that. If you have to ask your kids to leave a room because of what you're watching, there's probably a disconnect there. If you would feel uncomfortable if you were sitting next to Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Like if there's a scene, you're like, oh, cover your eyes, Jesus, sorry. No, I'm not covering my, get your hand down, Jesus. I want to see this part, but you cover your, you don't want to, But let me push you a little bit farther when it comes to what you watch on TV and what you watch in movies. See, I grew up in a world, and I feel like this is maybe many of your houses. If you would say, Nick, I'm a Christian household, here's what I assume, and I'm going to make some assumptions because this was in my household growing up, that we would never in my household have a magazine that had an inappropriate picture that, two people that were naked, and maybe you couldn't see everything, but two people that were naked having sex. Like if I ever brought a magazine home, I'm like, hey, Mom, really great articles about some cooking stuff. If she saw one, I would have got my butt whipped. I'd have got, it'd been bad, okay? It'd been terrible. Like we would never have that. You'd never have a magazine that even had one wildly inappropriate naked picture. Here's the crazy part. My assumption is your world's probably similar for some of you. Man, we would never have a magazine with a still picture. I'll tell you right now, though. We had movies littered across the wall, proudly shown. Sex scenes, 4 sex scenes. And just so you know, if you didn't know this, live images from an engaging biochemical standpoint are way better than images. There's a disconnect. It's a disconnect in our world. And I don't know the line. I don't know how much is too much. And I know the pushback. I know people look at me, Nick, the story is really good. Okay. And Playboy has amazing articles too. Okay, sure, yeah, whatever you want to say to yourself. That's great, okay? But we justify it. We justify it in a way, and we mess some stuff up. And it leads us down a path to pornography, which messes up our world. I struggled all week with what to say. Let's put that slide up there. I'm going to go through this quick. Side effects of porn. Let me just tell you exactly what happens when a man or a woman, because it's just as much a woman problem right now statistically in our country as a man problem. When they look at pornography, what happens is they become attached, bonded to an image. The dopamine that we've been talking about for several weeks now goes off in their brain. It is seared. Many young boys can tell you vividly the very first naked picture they saw of a woman. They can I can tell you exactly. I can't remember what my best friend's name was. I can tell you that moment. I can tell you that movie. I can tell you that magazine. I can tell you that whole deal. It sears it into their mind. They are bonded to the picture. We talked last week about why sex isn't just sex, why it's not just physical. Why? Because there's a bonding thing. The same bonding thing that happens when you have sex with multiple people, actually the same thing happens to images. This is incredibly problematic from a biochemical standpoint because what happens is you become bonded now not to people, but to images. You become bonded to expectations. Become bonded to things that are unrealistic in our world because all the pictures are photoshopped, all the pictures are unrealistic, all the pictures are on demand when you want. There's no relationship, there's no consequence, there's no context for it. It's just whenever I want, I'm going to look it up. And you're bonded to that. And some things happen in your world. All of a sudden, the frontal lobe part of your brain starts to shrink. The frontal lobe is incredibly important because that is the aspect that's logic, reason, and thinking. You literally get dumber. The second thing that happens is you start to diminish the value of relationships for things. Why? Because you're bonded to things over relationships. I've seen it over and over and over again. The husband or the wife, primarily the husband, in most of my counseling, is addicted to porn, and all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, over a period of time, he was once nice, he was once loving, he was once supportive. He's no longer as interested in sex. He's no longer as interested in her. He's a lot shorter. Why? Because she becomes a thing. She becomes an object. Why? Everything becomes objects. I'm bonded to objects. The high that was once for the very first hit that you hit, when you get that, the dopamine level, like every other drug, it hits the same areas, crack cocaine and heroin. It's like every other drug. It goes down, so you have to get worse and worse and worse, deeper into pornography to where you're getting some really, really messed up, perverted, disgusting things. And so once was this thing that people justified, oh, it's just no one's getting hurt, whatever, which is a lie. I'm not going to go there today. Eventually becomes a lie. I read a fascinating article this week on why porn is free. Why free porn really isn't free. And I read an article from one of the guys that advertised it. And he says, yeah, we give it away to free all the people. And the comment was, if it's also free, how do you make money? And he said, listen, because it's the hit, because the progression. Because we give away the basic stuff, the free stuff. And at some point, though, we hook them and the free will no longer work. And by the time that they are hooked, they will willingly give us our credit card and every other credit card they got. He said, we're not stupid. We know exactly what we're doing. It's not free. Well, I think it's free. It's not free. They're just baiting you. It's bait, hook. It changes your brain. It changes your neural pathways. And when all of that stuff is going on, when people become objects and you can disassociate yourself from relationships, these things happen. Depression happens. Social anxiety, young women in high school. Sexting has become a huge deal. Parents, let me just say this really quickly. I'm going to hit it here in a second too again. But parents, if you have a teenage daughter or a teenage son, you need to know their password to their phone, and you need to check it constantly. Their Snapchat. Now, listen, every teenager in here went, I don't like Nick Smith at all. We didn't leave this church, Mom, Dad. This guy's nuts. Like I don't care. One of the leading causes of social anxiety, depression among young teenage women has everything to do with pornography, everything to do with boys who are looking at pornography and seeing things that are standards that those girls cannot live up to, and yet they're expected to. And so they get text messages, hey, send me a nude, send me a pic, send me this thing. Come on, let's go. What are you doing? Don't you love me? Don't you like me? And there's pressure. And then they get the picture, and because they're addicted to porn, they don't really care about her. They just care about the picture because they're bonded to images, not the person. So they share the pictures and it gets out. It's depraved. It's messed up. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Low motivation. You want to know why marriage is falling through the floor? Why? Because men can get whatever they want physically, emotionally, with themselves, by themselves, on the internet, gratification, by themselves, alone, whenever they want. The thing that used to be the pineapple, the thing that used to sacrifice for and fight for and put in the center room and hold to high such a value has become this thing that you just get whenever you want on demand. And it doesn't really matter. So why get married? Low motivation, concentration problems, erectile dysfunction. How many people thought you'd ever hear erectile dysfunction in church? Yeah. Men become so bonded to images that their wives or their spouses no longer do it for them. So they can't get aroused. I'm not saying that's every issue with that, but you want to know why the spike in that is? Because the spike in erectile dysfunction has correlated with a spike in pornography use. I said it last week. In America alone, porn makes more than the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, and the NHL combined. It is America's pastime. Baseball is not. But it causes problems. It causes deep-seated problems, and we've not even gotten into the really, really disturbing things, which I'm not going to get into today. Glasses didn't help as much. It's disturbed. And statistically, 1 in 2 people in this room right now have a problem with it. It's a reality. We don't say it. We don't talk about it. That's what all anonymous statistics would say. 50% of men, about 30% of women. And the biggest issues, especially for women and many men, they don't even see it as a problem. Because we're so disconnected. We just think 50 Shades Free is a great night, and I went there and I watched the movie and I got sexually aroused, and then I went home to my spouse and I played out something with my husband, and it was an amazing night, and it was awesome because you hit the dopamine center and it was great that night. The problem is, it wasn't pure, and it was a hit, and it was a great night. But the issue is now the next time you're going to need the same thing, but a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and eventually 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you will be 2 separate people, and he will be an object and you will be an object, and you will have no clue what happened. Because purity paves the way for intimacy, not impurity. So I want to wrap it up with this. I want to read a couple verses, all right? Romans chapter 1, let's go through this. Give me the last verse really quickly, okay? We're running out of time. Give me the last verse. Here's what it says. Paul's talking about this. He says, Romans 1, he says, listen, there's a worship issue. You've exchanged the immortal. And he says, listen, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like mortal human beings and birds and animals and reptiles. Porn gets really messed up, and Paul predicted many, many years ago. He says, listen, your porn addiction is a worship issue. Period. Your porn addiction is a worship issue. He says you exchange the worship of Jesus for images, doctored image, made to look like mortal human images. They're photoshopped. They're not quite real. They'll never live up to those standards. Or birds and animals and reptiles. And if you know anything about porn, it goes dark, deep, weird into animals and weird things. It's messed up. Paul, 1,000 years ago, predicted this. So let me tell you exactly where culture's going. Why? Because Rome was very, very similar to us right now. You want to know where our culture's going? Just read history in Rome. It's fascinating. But Paul writes something in 1 Corinthians 6:18. He says this. I want to read this. I said this last week. Flee. Flee from sexual immorality. He does not say, nor does the Bible ever say, flee from sexual intercourse. The Bible never says don't have sex, ever. That's where the church has missed it. The church has said, listen, just don't cross this line right here, but you can go all the way up into here, okay? Because can we be really honest? There's a lot of stuff to do in between, hi, how you doing, and let's get it on, right? I mean, there's a lot of gray area right here. And the problem is the church says, listen, immorality, anything that is not pure, you need to find the line and turn and run. Run from it. Run as far away as you can. You don't play with it. You don't mess with it. You don't justify it. You don't say, I can handle it. It's fire. It will burn you. In a fireplace, it's amazing. Out of the fireplace, it burns the whole house down. A lot of you are holding matches. Out of the fireplace, away from it. Sitting back going, I wonder how long I can hold on until I get burned. So today I want to give you 3 practical next steps. Number 1 is this. I want you to pursue purity. Can we put the questions up? Here's some quick questions. Just evaluate your own life. This is not about lines. I'm not trying to say this show's bad. I don't know what it is for you. But if you're being honest with yourself, are the types of shows I watch on TV becoming more pure or less pure? 10 years ago, is it more pure what you watch now or less pure? Is there more sex and nudity in it or less sex and nudity? Are you growing in your pursuit of God and your pursuit of holiness? Are you walking away from Him justifying and saying, oh, everybody watches it. This is the number 1 TV show and what's the big deal? What I talk about with my friends, what do you joke about? What I look at and think about as far as the opposite sex, oh, I know it's just in your mind. We didn't even go down that path today. But are you pursuing God in a healthy relationship? And when you see the person of the opposite sex, do you look at somebody and say, yeah, they have value, they're made in the image of God, and they're beautiful and amazing, and I'm going to honor them, and I'm going to help them, and I'm going to challenge them? Or do you look at them and go, yeah, they're hot, or they're not, and they're just an object to you, to either be used or thrown away? How I dress and why I dress the way I do, it's a big issue. The music you listen to, are they honoring to women in relationships? That's the first one. Everybody in here, I don't care where you are, you just ask some of those questions. And are you pursuing the pineapple? For the second one is this. If you're a parent, I want to beg you, engage your kid in this conversation. If they're 6th grade and up, I promise you they've been exposed to porn. Promise you. If you have teenage daughters, be engaged in the conversations about what they're texting and what they're talking about. Because it's a scary time, and there's a whole bunch of questions of, do I get my kid a phone, and what do I do, and how do I check it? The answer is yes, check their phone, check their phone, check the phone, check the phone. Put spyware on their phone. Tell them, I put spyware on this phone, you can't break it. Nana boo-boo. Like, I don't care what you do. Protect your kids. Listen, there may be some stuff and some TV shows you watch and some movies in the house that you're like, I can handle, it's not a big deal, I just skipped it, but your kids might not. And every time you leave, they're sneaking those movies out, sneaking that stuff out. Be a parent. Quit being their friend. Be a parent. Have some hard conversations. Set some boundaries up. Set some rules up. I promise you it's worth it. If the worst thing is when your kid turns 18 and leaves and says, my parents were so prudish, win, okay? Because as a youth pastor, I constantly dealt with kids who were walking in and they were going, I'm addicted to porn, or I'm addicted to sex, or I sent some pictures, or I got some problems, or I'm depressed, or I got some anxiety, or I got you want that problem. Be that parent. This is fire. Don't play with it when it comes to your kids. Engage it. Don't ignore it. Don't hope it goes away. And don't allow the school system and their friends to dictate what they know and don't know about this topic. The last one is this. If you're here today and you say, Nick, and don't raise your hand, but I'm addicted. I got a problem. You need to pursue the pineapple. You need to pursue purity, but you need more than that. Because I've really struggled with what to do and what the next step is and what to say. And what I realize is if it was a matter of praying more, you'd have already done it. If it was a matter of being serious and repentant, you'd have already done that too. If it was a matter of reading the Bible more, you'd have done that. If you're really addicted, you've tried about everything. Here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to challenge you to do. James says this. James says, listen, that forgiveness comes from confession to God. Healing comes from confession to others. And so if you're here today and you say, yeah, I'm addicted, or you know somebody who's addicted, you need to tell somebody today. You need to confess it today. Confess it to a friend. Confess it to somebody who knows that they love you and they care about you and they've been with you a while and you can trust them. But you need to confess it. You need to say, hey, I need you to pray for me. I need you to hold me accountable. I need you to call me or text me every week. Say, hey, how you doing, man? How you doing? Hey, what are you watching? What hashtags on Instagram are you following? I want you to know, as your pastor, I have somebody every single tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. He calls me every week. He's holding me accountable on every area of my life, my finances, everything. Why? Because listen, everybody needs accountability. You need to find somebody. And here's what I offer. This is a one-time deal. This is not every week. If you don't have anybody, you can text message me. You can text message next steps to 31996. And for some of you know that like there's some other people that have access to that phone. We have stripped everybody out of that system for 24 hours. You get 24 hours. Next 24 hours, if you text message, I'm the only one checking it. I'm the only one getting emails, and I promise you, I will respond back to you within the next 24 hours. After that, we're gonna go back to normal. But I know the power of confession. I know the importance of it. I know in this room right now, we can all pretend it's why I got my sunglasses on so nobody thinks I'm looking at anybody right now. I know statistically many men in here, and some women. You got a porn problem. You got a purity problem. And it may not be killing you right now, and it might not be messing with you right now, but I promise you it will, because the biochemicals that go off in your brain, it's bonding. Whether you believe in God or not, it's bonding. Just go home and look it up. But there's hope. There's hope for those who pursue purity.